Hello again, everyone. My name is James Shotwell. This is Music Biz, and today we're going to put things into perspective. Now, whether you've been in music for 5 minutes or 5 years, you've no doubt heard that the competition to get noticed is fierce, and it's growing increasingly tough with each passing day. Now, this has pretty much always been true. From the dawn of the music industry till now, getting the attention of the industry at large, let alone listeners, has always been a difficult task. But recently, some data has surfaced that really puts these figures into perspective. If you're watching this, I'm going to assume that you're a musician that is either independent or on a relatively small label with hopes of going to a major label or at least growing your audience in the months and years to come. With that in mind, I want to start with a statistic from DistroKid, the most popular independent distributor of music in the world. Now, in a recent update, DistroKid said that they are processing more than 35,000 songs every single day. That works out to be about 24 songs a minute and more than 1 million tracks every single month. So that means 12 million songs every single year are getting uploaded through DistroKid. And DistroKid isn't the entire market. In fact, the company believes it's somewhere between 20 and 40% of the independent distribution market, which means that there's another 1.5 or 2 million plus songs getting added every single month through other independent music distributors. That already takes our total to way over 25 million songs per year. But wait, because the numbers get even wilder. Back in February, Spotify founder Daniel Ek said that more than 60,000 songs are added to Spotify every single day. That's more than 1.8 million songs every single month. And of those, the avenues for discovery are fairly limited for most listeners. Now, of course, there are always those outliers who are going above and beyond to find playlists with new music that may suit their interests, but most people are, at most, looking at their release radar and any new music recommendation playlist that Spotify auto-generates and puts in front of them. Those playlists may have anywhere from 10 to 30 or 40 songs that a person has never heard before versus the 1.8 million that came out each month. And that's not considering any catalog songs that Spotify may add to these discovery playlists, stuff from a year ago or 6 months ago. All this goes to say that the competition is incredibly fierce. And before you go getting your hopes up or thinking that it's all for naught, let's go a little bit further because I believe that honesty is the best policy. Now, I know that there are other streaming services out there, but let's be honest, Spotify is the leader in this field, and most people measure their success, at least to some degree, based on the total number of streams they have on Spotify and their total monthly listeners. But recent data shows that virtually 93% of all artists on Spotify have less than 1,000 listeners per month. So if you're sitting anywhere even close to 1,000, let alone over it, be that 5,000, 10,000, 30, or 100,000, just know that you are already in rarefied air. You're already reaching more listeners than the vast majority of every artist on Spotify. And if you just do a little bit of work, and I'm talking the smallest amount of legwork possible, to have a social presence, constantly create new content, work to engage your listeners, work to build your audience through constantly curating new ideas and new content and new angles on your music, well, guess what? You are already going above and beyond most musicians because it's not that hard to hit 1,000 listeners when you think that there are over 150 million active people on Spotify every single month, and you only need 1,000 to be in the top 7% of all musicians on the platform. So with that in mind, I want to give you some hope before you feel that it is pointless to continue on. And look, I get it. Most musicians dream of a world where their songs become the biggest songs in the nation or on the planet. They dream of ascending through the hierarchy of the music industry and becoming an arena headliner or even a stadium headliner. But I think when you see these numbers and you start to feel that anxiety, that stress of, I don't know if I should even try because is my song even going to be heard by anybody? I think the key here is just shifting our perspective, refocusing on our core goals. Now, we would all love to build an audience, get a community going around our music, sell some records, sell some concert tickets, and work away from having day jobs and just focusing on our creativity full time. But at the core, the very first goal that most artists have is just to make something that they like, to make something that sets their soul on fire, makes them feel creatively fulfilled, shares their unique perspective or story with audiences, and hopefully does so in a way that is catchy or engaging to people other than themselves. But again, that's still taking it one step too far. The basic goal is just making something that you like. And we live in a day and an age where thankfully doing that and getting it out into the world is easier than ever. There are virtually no barriers to entry to music anymore. As long as you have a cell phone or a computer, you can easily record something and upload it in a smaller amount of time than has ever been possible for anyone in the history of recorded music. You can be a part of the music business with virtually no money down and no experience. And yes, that raises the overall amount of competition, but how many of those artists, of those 1.8 million songs released every single month onto Spotify, are really in direct competition with you and the music that you're making? Because I think recognizing how small the competitive field for what you're doing actually is may be the key to keeping your head above water when you start to get stressed and anxious. You see, 20 years ago, if you asked somebody how you go about marketing your music, they would tell you that it's best to cast a wide net, that you want to try to hit as many people as possible because you never know who might take an interest in your music. But the data we've seen coming in through streaming services and other listener behavior studies has taught us otherwise. We now know that most people are just looking for more of the same. So if they like hard rock, they want to hear more hard rock acts. They don't want to hear a new rock band that sounds nothing like the bands they already love necessarily. They want more of the same with just a little variation, something that's just different enough to feel new without completely abandoning the thing that they already like. People hate to leave their comfort zones. And if you're an artist who understands this, then you can begin to build your career around the idea of association and focusing down on your niche. Now, let's use rock as an example. Let's say that you're a rock band that makes music that is heavily influenced by classic rock artists. Well, that already gives you your niche. If you recognize the classic rock bands that you take cues from when you're creating social media content, branding, targeted advertising, you can include those classic rock influences in the overall concept of how you present yourself. So when you're doing targeted ads, targeting fans of the bands that you borrow from is a really good idea. When you're thinking about how to present yourself visually, taking cues from those artists is a great way to inform what you do. And I'm not telling you to copy what they do. I mean, we're not looking for people to copy and paste old ideas. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying that you need to learn from what's worked in the past. So if you study it and add your own twist to it, the combination of those two things will create something new that is engaging to the exact audience you are trying to reach. And of course, it'll be cool if people from outside that niche take an interest in your music, but that's more of a byproduct of successful marketing to the niche that you are focused on. So if you're really good at engaging the teen market, over time, adults will probably take notice because the teenagers won't shut up about what you're doing. Similarly, if you're a New York hip hop artist who is targeting fans of New York hip hop and they become really obsessed with what you're doing, people interested in other areas of hip hop or even other genres of music altogether will start to take notice because they hear this deafening roar of support for what you're doing in the niche that you're trying to market to. And when you consider what you're doing versus everybody else putting music onto Spotify, you realize that 1.8 million new songs every month number isn't really that scary. Because if you're a rock band that's heavily influenced by classic rock, the number of those 1.8 million songs that are in direct competition with you for the audience that you are trying to reach is relatively small. Now, it may still be several thousand songs every single month, but it's much more easy to mentally digest and overcome than 1.8 million. If you figure out your field, where it is that you belong and the people that you're trying to reach, you will realize the competition isn't as scary as it seems. And that as long as you figure out how to reach that audience and how to consistently engage with them and build a community around your music and support other artists in that field, you can rise up. You will see those numbers grow, whether they be monthly listeners, overall streams, ticket sales, merch sales. It all comes from understanding your audience. So if we go back to recap all of this, forget about the numbers that you see. They're always going to be big and impressive because these are companies trying to get more funding and more attention for what they're doing. Of course, they're going to put out these gigantic numbers that are really scary to independent artists trying to make their way in the world. But if you remember that all you really need is a core group of supporters who are outspoken about their love for you and to engage with them regularly, then that's where it's at. That's the whole game. Just figuring out where your people are, engaging with them, and together building a community of supportive fans and artists who are all in it for their love of the craft. Now, I hope this brings you some comfort. I also hope that it gives you some ideas. Maybe it's time to pivot what you're doing. Maybe it's time to reassess what you're doing to reach new fans. I mean, if you're an EDM artist who's constantly casting a wide net into the worlds of hip hop, rock, and pop and everything in between, maybe it's time to pull back those marketing efforts and pivot to something a bit more directly focused on what it is that you do and the community of people that you're trying to grow around your sound. Now, this is a very easy idea, but it can take time to implement, so please consider subscribing to the Music Biz channel, where we provide you with tons of advice on branding, aesthetics, visuals, marketing, advertising, and so much more. That's what this channel is here for. That's what I'm here for, and I hope that you will join our community of excited music professionals to, again, just build a community of people who are really excited about music. Now, if you've already done that, thank you so much for watching and for tuning in and for sticking around. Your support means the world, and I'll leave you with this. No matter what you do with your life, please take care of yourself, because you deserve it.